Hi folks, this is Steve, the Cardboard Cultist, and today we're going to be taking a quick look at Sid Meier's Civilization and New Dawn. And this is a 2 to 4 player turn-based strategy game from Fantasy Flight Games. Now some of you may be familiar with Fantasy Flight's 2010 Sid Meier Civilization game, so it's worth mentioning that while New Dawn is set in the same universe, it's more than simply just a reprint or a second edition. New Dawn has been designed to offer a streamlined empire building experience. So in New Dawn, you're going to take control of one of history's great empires. And it's going to be your job to guide your nation to superiority. And you'll do this through trade, through conquest, through building new cities, and advancing your technology. In mechanical terms, victory will be achieved through agenda cards. Each game will feature 3 agenda cards, and each agenda card will have 2 possible agendas to complete. In order to gain victory for your empire, you'll need to complete 1 agenda on each card. And this just helps to focus gameplay and give your empire some direction. But with 2 agendas on each card, you'll still have a little bit of flexibility. So how exactly do you go about achieving victory for your empire? Well, to understand that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the breakdown of a turn in New Dawn. So if you take a look now at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a row of 5 cards. And this is my own personal focus row. And this represents the various pursuits of my nation or the actions that my nation can take. And each action is tied to an area of development. And that's going to encompass things like scientific advancement or military-based advancements or more trade-based advancements. And on my turn, I'm going to choose one of these cards to activate, and I'm simply going to carry out the actions on the card. After I've completed the action, I'm going to take the card and I'm going to move it to the far left of my focus row. And all the cards before it are going to slide up 1 space. Now the importance of this is that the further to the right the cards are when they're played, the more powerful their effects are going to be. So to get the most out of the cards in your focus row, you often want them in the 5th slot before you activate them. But of course this doesn't always line up with the needs of your empire. So juggling the cards in your focus row and trying to maximise their efficiency becomes a core part of the game. Sometimes you're going to be forced to take inefficient actions just to get the job done. While other times everything's going to flow perfectly and you're going to be triggering those 5th slot actions turn after turn. And I really enjoy the way this focus row works, because it gives you plenty to think about during other players' turns. You're constantly trying to be as efficient as possible with the cards that you activate, but due to the way you're trying to build your empire, there are certain cards that you just want to trigger over and over. And this creates a really nice trade-off in the way that you play the game. Now to the left of the cards in my focus row, you'll see a green dial, and this is my technology dial. And every so often, as I hit certain checkpoints on the dial, I'm going to get access to new technology. Or more specifically, I'm going to get to upgrade the cards in my focus row. And obviously, as new technologies get added to the focus row, it becomes harder and harder not to trigger them early. Patience and good timing are the key to navigating this focus row. So now that you have a little bit of a better idea of the basic mechanics of the game, let's take a closer look at the game you're watching right now. So after we'd built up the modular game board, I found myself tucked away down this bottom corner of the board. And as this was my first time playing the game, I was fairly happy with that. I was playing as the Egyptians, and their primary ability is that they get a discount on building wonders. Now looking at the agenda cards, which are those smaller cards just to the bottom left hand corner of the game board, I quickly realised that I could get 2 out of 3 agenda cards completed just by focusing on wonders. So my main strategy in this game was just to kind of turtle up down the bottom corner of the board and just focus on building wonders until the late game when I was going to expand out a little further. Now if you take a look at the 3 cities that I've built down in that part of the board, you'll also notice some tokens surrounding those cities. And these tokens help to mature cities, which is basically a representation of their cultural advancement. They also help defend the cities from invasion. You may have just noticed one of my tokens was destroyed by a barbarian invasion. And those red barbarian tokens are just bouncing around the board, causing trouble. So along with the other empires we've got to worry about, we've also got to worry about barbarians marauding around the board. Meanwhile, the red player over to the left has managed to complete one of their agendas. Now for those of you familiar with the rules, you may have noticed the red player does have an illegally placed city. This isn't something we noticed when it was first placed, so when we did notice, we just let him carry on, as it didn't change the game too much. Meanwhile though, I'm still trying to work towards getting a second blue wonder and a second yellow wonder completed. And these wonders can offer some incredibly strong benefits. And I was really happy to be building an empire focused on wonders, because they were giving me some really nice benefits and also working towards the agendas to win the game. Now another important aspect of the game is trading. Along with the cities of your opponent's empires, there are also cities dotted across the map. And you can send out trade caravans to do deals with these cities. And this gives you some unique benefits specific to each city and also allows you to power up some of your action cards. and you can see that represented by those crate tokens on some of the cards in my focus row. Now at this point in the game, I felt like I was hitting a nice rhythm. I knew what I wanted to achieve, and I had a decent idea of how to go about achieving it. The problem was I really hadn't been paying much attention to my opponents. And in a competitive empire building game like this, you've really got to have a decent idea of what your opponents are doing. The red player had been steadily advancing their technology, and they already had access to nuclear power. I was about to have a huge portion of my defences wiped out in one foul swoop. And there was really nothing I could do about it, other than go back to the drawing board and start again. Because of the fast-paced nature of the game though, you never feel like you're being hit too hard by negative effects. It's fairly easy to keep working towards your agenda, even when things aren't going your way. And I quite like that, because it means that new players aren't going to be too disadvantaged, but also more strategic players or more aggressive players aren't going to feel too guilty about taking out their opponents. When we moved into the late game and more aggressive actions were being taken, I didn't feel like I was out of my depth or like I couldn't compete. I was still able to focus on my game plan and keep chipping away at the agendas. At this point in the game, all three of us had one agenda card completed, but the game was really starting to ramp up. The blue player would soon get their second agenda completed, and I wasn't going to be far behind. Now unfortunately, we did hit a little bit of a stalemate as we came into the finale of the game. And part of what caused this stalemate is probably poor strategy on our part as new players, but also a symptom of the agenda cards themselves. You see, as one person gets close to victory, it's really easy for the other players to gang up on them. And if you're not careful, the end game can turn into a little bit of a crapshoot, which obviously is the last thing you want after investing 2 or more hours into a game. That said, better planning or different agenda cards are all going to help mitigate this situation. Overall, this is a really nice empire building game that plays really quickly. I've played this a number of times now, and all of the games have been wrapped up in and around that 2-hour mark. So if you want a board game to scratch that Civilization itch, then give this one a closer look. But until next time, take care and thanks for watching.